Spit bars, I stand behind mine. Yeah. Sentences I serve, maximize guidelines. My lawyer can't give me his advice when these beasts that I murder carry mandatory minimums of life. Yikes. In case you didn't get the point, we spit bars.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Maximum Sentence, where there's conviction behind the bars. I'm your man, AJ Throwback. Great to be here with you on another Wednesday, where we are breaking down a brand new song this week after a 2-week hiatus from my debut EP, The Late Bloomer. This is the third single called The Love Theory, featuring KimA Michelle, produced by Gladiator. But before we go any further, if this is your first time watching any of my content, please make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that bell notification so that whenever I premiere a new video, go live, or post a new video, you'll be among the first to know. Now, we got that part out of the way. Of course, we always got to start off with showing love to those who show love to the Maximum Sentence. So let's get to some comments right now. Shout out to my sis, Ansley Jukeboxx Joy, who says, "This is such a beautiful breakdown. I am so inspired, especially by the part about finding your tribe and welcoming people who welcome you. I really needed to hear this and will be rewatching to take it all in again. Thank you for the wisdom, my friend. Your clothing line is dope. Congratulations." And thank you so much for that feedback on the clothing line. As people can see, I am rocking some of my stuff from my new clothing line, but we'll get to that a little bit later. And this, by the way, is in response to the last video regarding Loner's Remorse, just to set the record straight. The next comment comes from my brother Mike Mountain, who says, "I felt how your kid took that rejection so bad. I used to be like that. I think it's a symptom from being an only child." And that's in response to something I said in the last video regarding, or one of the last videos regarding an incident that my son went through. So that's who he's talking about specifically, and both Mike Mountain and my son are both only children, so that's where that comment comes into play. And the last comment comes from my brother Marchello Bradley of What's Up With You. He says, "It's crazy how we carry past traumas with us through life. A lot of times we react to the present through the lens of our past. That's great for survival, but terrible for relationship building. 100 months is 8 years. Life happens fast when you're caught up in the daily activities of adulthood, and before you know it, it's damn near over. Maintaining relationships is super difficult when you're trying to elevate in any capacity. I think in order for relationships to be healthily maintained, the persons involved have to be equally yoked in some form of fashion. As Chris Rock says, 2 crackheads can stay together forever." I have absolutely enjoyed you breaking down your lyrics to Loner's Remorse. You are an inspiration, bro. Looking forward to more work from you in the future. Well, you don't have to look too much further than right today. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody for your comments, for your support. Thanks to everybody who have bought the EP so far, The Late Bloomer. If you are not one of those people yet, you can actually go to my website, bammllc.net/music to get the EP. And there you can go to the different sites. You can also go to my Bandcamp. You can go to Tidal. You can go to Amazon. You can go to Apple Music. You can go to Deezer from my website. So definitely make sure that y'all check it out. Now, we are going to go ahead and get into this latest single called Loner's Remorse. From the first verse, I think the part that I really want to break down is where I say, this is in the second half of the first verse, where I say, "Subconsciously, the fights determined Joe's position. I avoided confrontation like Jehovah's Witness. Should be in Jhoon Rhee, bothered, so defensive. Swear my mantle's filled with Emmys, was a dope pretender." And the reason why these bars are so important, especially feeding off of the first couple of bars, to set it up a little bit, one of the biggest things that really deterred me, or I feel like maybe have deterred me on a subconscious level, is witnessing my parents frequently argue. I remember when I was about 8 years old. This was in the last year that they lived together. 7, 8 years old, let me say it like that. So pretty much most of the year 1987. I mean, the thing is, parents disagree. You have parents that are married long enough or that have been together long enough, then you're going to see them disagree. But these fights were so, for somebody like me who believed in peace and keeping peace, to see these fights, especially from my mother. Because my mother, if you take her separate and apart from her relationship with my dad, my mother is not really the type to do a whole lot of fussing and fighting and, arguing and whatnot. She's the type that wants to keep the peace as much as possible. But to a fault, if I'm being honest, because there's a lot of times that she doesn't necessarily speak up and say certain things or speak up for herself in all situations. I mean, she did it a lot of times. I mean, she wasn't necessarily a pushover, but if she could help it, if she could not necessarily fuss about things, then she wouldn't. Whereas my dad was a total opposite. My dad was the type of person who believed, look, if you believe your point, if you believe you're right about something, you fight it. You argue the point basically to the death, and to a fault when it came to my dad. And the problem with these two kind of polar opposites is that these two people are raising a Libra. And the thing about raising a Libra who's trying to balance those things out and see, okay, how much is too much in terms of defending myself? How much is too much in terms of not saying enough? And so that's really where you get to the lines, subconsciously the fights determine Joe's position. I avoided confrontation like Jehovah's Witness, going back to my nature as a Libra. Libras, we are harmonious people by nature. We're all about peace and harmony and keeping things in order. And so to have to deal with confrontation, it's not to say that none of us as Libras can deal with confrontation. We just prefer not to have to deal with it. And especially me, having witnessed the things that I witnessed as a child, especially when you talk about being in relationships. And a lot of times, not just witnessing those things, but in my own experiences, speaking up for myself didn't always get met with the best of energy. A lot of times I felt like I couldn't speak up for myself, because when I did, I felt like it was just met with so much vitriol, or was met with so much confusion, or I felt like I had to over-explain myself when it came to certain things. So it was really a deterrent for me to want to say what was really on my mind and really express my emotions. Then you get to the line, should be in Jhoon Rhee, bothered, so defensive. When it came to a lot of arguments, whether you're talking past relationships and even my present relationship, if I'm being honest, this is one of the sticking points, frankly, in my marriage, is the fact that a lot of times in arguments or in disagreements, I would get defensive because I felt like I had to protect myself for whatever reason or another. Even if it was unwarranted, I felt like I had to protect myself. And so it was one of those things where the opposite of anybody who's from DC and knows about the whole Jhoon Rhee commercials where the kid would be like, nobody bothers me. And then somebody be like, nobody bothers me either. Like it was martial arts. And so instead of feeling like I wasn't bothered, I was frequently bothered by certain confrontations and feeling like I had to speak up for myself, or I felt like somebody was attacking me even when they weren't necessarily attacking me. And it's because of that whole thing of fearing confrontation, not wanting to have to deal with confrontation, not necessarily being adept at dealing with confrontation. And so that's why those lines are so important and so paramount in that first verse when you set up the rest of the song. So the line where I say, swear my mantle's filled with Emmys was a dope pretender. I would constantly go around like nothing's wrong. Like somebody would ask me, what's wrong? My wife could ask me, what's wrong? And I'd be like, I'm good, nothing's wrong. And the whole time I'm sitting here and things are festering. I'm not expressing myself. And I'm sitting here and channeling this energy in all of the wrong ways because I won't just say what's on my mind because I'm afraid of the confrontation, because all I could think about in my mind are those times that my mom and my dad got into it. And I just was really hell bent on making sure that I did not go through that in any relationship that I dealt with, especially having dealt with a relationship that reminded me way too much of my mom and my dad constantly fighting, which, I don't want to dig too deep into further lines because I want to get to this next verse. But the whole line where I say, when 07 felt like history repeated worse, I said it's either we disperse or order me a hearse. That was in reference to a girlfriend that I was dating, or a woman that I was dating at the time, right around between 2004 and 2007. You know, I'm not going to name names, but that relationship reminded me way too much of my mom and dad, because we were constantly at odds and arguing about dumb stuff. And so I never really wanted to go down that road with anybody that I was with ever again. But unfortunately, because I did a lot of internalizing and I did a lot of not really expressing myself, I ultimately became the monster that I was trying to prevent myself from becoming. You know, so that's why a song like this is so important. Then we get to the line where I say, when the folks are supposed to love you don't choose you, loyalty can be a touchy topic. All they know is go, but still ain't sharing much in common. And the reason why that's important is because of my relationship with my father. It had nothing to do with my mom. My mom was around the entire time of, you know, my life, my childhood. Whereas my dad, it's not that he was necessarily an absentee father, but my dad was, you know, he was dealing with a lot of stuff, as I've said in previous episodes, dealing with loner's remorse. But this more so gets to the whole heart of relationships. And a lot of times I think it's very easy for us to think of how we deal with the opposite sex based on our relationships with our parent of the opposite sex. But how we deal with the opposite sex also has to deal with our relationship with our parent of the same sex. Because my dad, he chose other things over us. And, you know, I've said it before how much that really stung as a kid. But the thing is, when you think about it, it translates, or it extends into other areas other than the obvious. It can extend into relationships too, because if you feel like the person who's supposed to be in your corner, the person you look up to, the person you see as a hero, if that person isn't there, if that person bails on you, if that person chooses something or someone over you, then you feel like, well, shoot, if they do it, who's to say that somebody that I'm in a relationship won't do it? And so a lot of times it goes back to the whole thing of being defensive. You feel like you have to be protective, or you have to create this protective shell around yourself to protect yourself from possibly getting hurt. The first sign of it seeming like somebody is choosing something or someone over you, you feel like, you know what? Why be loyal? You know what I'm saying? You just gonna roll anyway. Or you're just gonna choose something or somebody over me anyway. So why don't I just go ahead and protect myself? Why don't I just go ahead and do what I think is necessary in order to protect myself? And then it takes you down this rabbit hole of bad decisions. And we could get into that, but you know, I won't go too deep into that. Let's just say I've made quite a few of them in my lifetime that I'm not proud of. But a lot of it I feel like has to do with the whole thing of the person that I looked up to the most not being loyal enough to stick around, and feeling like all that he wanted to do was leave, not really understanding that there were deeper issues than that it wasn't just as cut and dry as the fact that he just didn't want to be around. He was dealing with a disease, you know. So to try to punish other people for the mistakes my dad made wasn't fair. To try to punish to punish women that I dealt with because I had these trust issues that I couldn't even really express, or I couldn't even understand, it was unfair to them. So, you know, the whole second verse kind of sort of follows suit in terms of that unfair treatment of a lot of these women that I dealt with because of these abandonment issues that I never really acknowledged as abandonment issues. And that's just being honest, you know. So then you get to the third verse, and probably the standout lines for me in the third verse was when I say, and analyzing and uncovering my feelings, started wondering, was I tainted from my slumming in the village? You taste too many apples, hard to get hungry. How I got a torso, too many took a rib from me. And that connects to the whole thing of sex, because the third verse focuses a lot on sex. And this takes it separate and apart from my relationship with my mom and my dad and seeing the demise of their relationship. This is just me trying to fend for myself and trying to understand relationships on my own, separate and apart from them, especially when it came to sex, because I never really felt like sex was explained well to me by my parents, if I'm being honest. But that was part of the problem. I tried to fend for myself. I tried to make it happen on my own, and I basically let TV guide me. I basically let movies guide me. I basically let music guide me. I basically let my friends guide me. And so you have all of these competing ideas when it comes to sexual relationships with women, that you have a very narrow view of how to interact with a woman sexually, you know. And the thing is like, I'm thinking about it biblically, thinking about it spiritually. The more you give yourself away to more women, the more soul ties that you create with more women. You know, it's the whole thing of like, you supposed to be with one woman, or you supposed to be with one person like that, and that's your person. From a spiritual perspective, or from a biblical perspective, let me put it like that. That's the way that God designed it. And my thing is, it's like, okay, I'm sitting here and I'm tasting from this apple, I'm tasting from that apple, and it's developing a certain taste to the point that I can't appreciate when I get in a situation where I'm just with one woman for the rest of my life. Because it's like, I have all of these different tastes on my palate. They've changed my palate. Instead of keeping that palate pure and being able to appreciate the treasure that is my wife once I get her, which I touch upon a little bit earlier in that verse. And so this song is so personal, but it's so honest, because it takes a sober look at who I am as a man, as a lover, as a husband, as a friend, but also looking at the fact that a lot of times the way that we approach relationships are very much guided by our examples of relationships. Whether you're talking about your parents, whether you're talking about aunts or uncles, whether you're talking about grandparents, whether you're talking about people in your neighborhood, no matter who it might be, a lot of times we see love in the world of love through the lens of love, or the examples of love that we've been given. And that those are not always the best examples. And I'm not saying my mom and my dad were like just terrible examples, but their failures really affected me in a lot of different ways that, you know, I probably didn't acknowledge until I was older. And I think that's where it's important for us to do when we are people who are struggling in relationships, when we're struggling to express ourselves in terms of our emotions, when we're struggling to be loyal, when we're struggling to be faithful, you know, and appreciate sex for what it really is. It's a gift from God. These are the things that we really have to navigate as people who are in serious relationships. So I think that's basically the best way that I can put it, and the best place that I can leave it when it comes down to breaking down these lyrics to the love theory. Now, if you don't have my debut EP, The Late Bloomer, which features the love theory, and the same place where you can get the Late Bloomer EP, you can also get the gear that you're seeing on me right now. Although this hat is not yet on the website, I think I'm going to make sure that it's on there by the time y'all see this video, so that y'all can get this hat if you really like this hat, although it is in a dad hat already. And this shirt that you see right here, these are part of my new merch line called Batch, which stands for Balancing Act Trinkets and Clothing House. You can get the Late Bloomer EP, you can get this gear that you see on, and much, much more at my website, BAMMLLC.net. Once again, that's BAMMLLC.net. From there, with the music, you can not only get it on my website, but if you are preferably a Bandcamp person, Amazon person, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal person, you can also go to those websites as well and get the project. Now, if you go to my Bandcamp page, ajthrowback.bandcamp.com, once again, ajthrowback.bandcamp.com, you can get 4 bonus tracks that you're not going to be able to find anywhere else. So if you want more, definitely go to my Bandcamp page. If you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe to it right now. Hit that bell notification so that whenever I go live, premiere a new video, post a new video, you'll be among the first ones to know, and you won't be a late bloomer like me, you know what I mean? So, and if you're not already following me on social media, please do so. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter at AJ Throwback, but if you are a TikTok person or Instagram person, I'm on those platforms as well, a.j.throwback. And to follow the merch line, on Facebook and Instagram, it is batch.202, and on Twitter, it is batch_202. So we will be coming back next week to break down another song from the EP. Next week, it'll be The Listening Party, which is the opening track for the EP. So I'm definitely excited about breaking down that track right there. It's a lengthy one, but I'm gonna try to shorten this as much as I possibly can, just like I tried to do that today with this particular one. So until the next time, this has been The Maximum Sentence, where there's conviction behind the bars. I'm your man AJ Throwback, and I'm looking forward to coming back next week to breaking down another song from my debut EP, The Late Bloomer. Thank you once again to everybody who has bought the EP, who has listened to the EP, who has shared, spread the word, done whatever to really show their support for this project. Thank you to everybody who's bought merch so far. I definitely appreciate y'all. Just everybody who's just feeding just plenty of positive energy. I feed so much off of that positive energy, and I need y'all in order to be able to come back week after week after week and break these songs and really create conversations around them. So thank you once again, and I will see y'all next week. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all week. Enjoy your weekend, and y'all be easy. Peace.
Life is what you make it. Your faith should not be shaken. So hard you try. Open your eyes. Push through the tears. Face your fears. It will be.